Everybody good? Good morning. I'm pleased to be here to announce the opening of the Northeast Ohio Crime Gun Intelligence Center, or CJIC. CJICs like this one are law enforcement hubs that focus exclusively on investigating and preventing gun violence. They bring law enforcement officers and prosecutors together from local, state, and federal levels all together in one place. There, they provide them with access to cutting-edge ballistic analysis and firearms tracing technology. Through enhanced collaboration and advanced technology, CJICs help investigators generate leads to get shooters off the streets and dismantle the trafficking networks that supply violent criminals with their guns. To mark today's opening, I'm joined by the ATF Director, Mr. Dettelbach, and the U.S. Attorney, Ms. Lutzko, and more than 20 law enforcement leaders. They represent just some of the dozens of agencies that will benefit from this CJIC. Standing together today, this group also represents the collaborative approach that the Justice Department has taken to combating violent crime over the past 3.5 years. When I became Attorney General, I knew that grappling with the violent crime that surged early in the pandemic would be one of the greatest challenges faced by the Justice Department. I also knew that among the most powerful tools the department has to confront violent crime would be our partnerships. Our partnerships among federal law enforcement agencies assisting in the fight against violent crime, our partnerships with the state and local law enforcement agencies that protect their local communities every single day, and our partnerships with the community groups, intervention workers, and local leaders who work alongside us to help prevent and reduce gun violence. So we have spent the last 3 years pouring every available resource into strengthening those partnerships, including through CJICs like this one. But just today, there is a proposal to drastically cut the Justice Department's budget by almost $1 billion, including U.S. attorneys and the ATF, which help keep communities like Cleveland safe. This effort to defund the Justice Department and its essential law enforcement functions will make our fight against violent crime all the more difficult. It is unacceptable. Today also marks the 2-year anniversary of the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, or BISCA. In those 2 years, we have charged 525 defendants under the Act's straw purchasing and firearms trafficking provisions and stopped 800 people who are legally prohibited from obtaining guns. We have made wide-reaching efforts to combat the scourge of violent crime, and we are seeing results. Data released by the FBI earlier this month show that in the first 3 months of this year, violent crime decreased by more than 15% compared to the same period last year, and murder decreased by more than 26%. Here in Cleveland, homicides committed with a firearm are down more than 33% year to date. And this builds on the historic decline in violent crime we saw on the national level last year, including the largest one-year drop in homicides in 50 years. Those declines are more than just statistics. They represent people who are still here, who get to share their lives with their families, and who get to contribute to their communities. But we know our work is far from done. Earlier this month, a block party in Akron became the target of a drive-by mass shooting. 28 people were injured, and a 27-year-old man was killed. And last month in Euclid, Officer Jacob Durbin was tragically shot and killed in the line of duty responding to a call. Officer Durbin was a veteran of the U.S. Army National Guard. He was just 23 years old. We remember Officer Durbin today and all of the officers who have made the ultimate sacrifice to keep our communities safe. Our country owes them and their families a debt of gratitude we can never repay. The Justice Department is committed to doing everything in our power to combat the gun violence that endangers our communities. And we are committed to doing everything in our power to support the law enforcement officers who risk their lives for our communities every single day. No one in this country should have to live in fear of gun violence. No family and no community should have to grieve the loss of their loved ones to senseless violence. That is why we are here today. The Northeast Ohio Crime Gun Intelligence Center will help us leverage our partnerships and technological innovation to solve gun crimes and save lives. All of us on this stage know that when it comes to investigating gun crimes, every day matters. Every day, another lead can run dry. Every day, a repeat shooter may shatter another family and another community. With this CJIC, it does not matter if a crime is committed in a city, a suburb, or a rural area. The law enforcement investigators who investigate will have cutting-edge technology at their fingertips and a lineup of experts ready to assist. And if a single firearm is used to commit crimes in multiple jurisdictions across Northeast Ohio, this centralized CJIC will enhance investigators' ability to detect patterns. Across the country, we have seen how CJICs can support law enforcement investigations. A few months ago, Chicago police officer Luis Huesca was shot and killed on his way home from work. It was a tragedy for his family, for his colleagues, and for the city. Because of the new CJIC, investigators were able to promptly process ballistics and firearms evidence from the scene. They identified and arrested a subject within weeks. In March of this year, the Detroit Police Department recovered a firearm with an affixed machine gun conversion device. Working with the Detroit CJIC, law enforcement were able to connect the use of that firearm to both a drive-by shooting and a gang-related homicide. We opened a CJIC in Columbus a little under a year ago. Before the CJIC opened, it took between 40 to 60 days for a shell casing found at a crime scene in Columbus to get added to ATF's NIBIN database. Since the CJIC opened, we have cut that time to 2 days. Whether in Chicago, Detroit, or Columbus, or here in Cleveland, CJIC's law enforcement keep our communities safe. CJICs are a great tool, but they are not our only tool. As we invest in expanding these centers across the country, the Justice Department is also working in joint task forces with our state and local partners to zero in on the individuals and gangs that have repeatedly committed violent offenses. And building on the power of collaboration, today we published an interim final rule that will allow firearms dealers and others to check the FBI's National Crime Information Center database so they can see if guns being sold to them were stolen. We are also putting our grant-making powers to work to hire more police officers, strengthen community policing efforts, and invest in evidence-based community violence intervention programs with a track record of success. And we are continuing to take steps to build the public trust that is essential to public safety. I am grateful to all of our enforcement and community partners throughout Northeast Ohio who have helped advance efforts to keep this community safe. Our work is far from over. Progress is only progress, and without our vigilance, it can easily slip away. This CJIC does not represent the culmination of the Justice Department's efforts to stop gun crimes in this region. It marks a new chapter. Before I close, I want to acknowledge that we are here today in Cleveland on what should have been Tamir Rice's 22nd birthday. Tamir's death was a tragedy that devastated his family and so many in this community. I am thinking of Tamir's loved ones who miss him every day and for whom today is a particularly painful day. I want to thank everyone who is here today who has helped make this CJIC possible. I know that none of us will stop working until all Americans in Northeast Ohio and across the country feel safe in their communities. And I'm going to turn the podium over to the Director of the ATF, Stephen Dettelbach.
Thank you, Attorney General Garland, and welcome to my hometown of Cleveland. And I also want to thank U.S. Attorney Lutzko. Becky Lutzko, I'm a little biased in this, but I will say, objectively, she does head the best United States Attorney's Office in the nation. I also want to thank so many of our partners who helped make today happen. Mayor Bibb, County Executive Ronayne, Attorney General Yost, Governor DeWine, Mayor Malik, Marshall Elliott, really all of our state, local, and federal partners who are integral in making a Crime Gun Intelligence Center, or CGIC, like this truly exceptional. Without all of these partners, the leadership of which is standing here, this just does not happen. And saving the best for last, I want to recognize the all-star team at ATF here, which has been an incredible driving force. SAC McCormick, ASAC John Smerglia, Mike Gajewski, and all the people here. They are the beating heart of the fight against violent crime in this community, in this country. SAC McCormick has been instrumental actually in setting up multiple CGICs, including the one in Columbus that the Attorney General talked about, which since its establishment has helped drive down the violent crime rate precipitously. I was with Mayor Ginther in Kansas City at the Conference of Mayors, and he specifically called out the CGIC as the reason for a lot of this decline in Columbus. And that's because CGICs are founded on the principles of crime gun intelligence, or CGI as we call it, which is just the ability to squeeze every last bit of evidence out of a crime gun. That combination of crime gun tracing, of ballistics information in our system with millions of pieces of information called the NIBIN system, of touch DNA technology, and real-time information analysis, better than ever, not just connects different incidents that might seem like separate incidents, but it helps identify the trigger pullers driving violent crime. As you heard from the Attorney General, keeping our community safe from gun crime is a top priority of the entire department, and under Attorney General Garland's leadership, our efforts have been and will continue to be both comprehensive and ongoing and effective. At ATF, violent crime is our mission. We're the only federal law enforcement agency whose sole focus, only focus, is to work with police to protect Americans from violent crime. Our strategy in that mission is twofold. First, we use data to identify shooters and get them off the streets and in jail where they belong. Second, we use that same data to identify the people and methods by which these people who are shooters are illegally getting their firearms. Across the country, ATF operates with our partners more than 60 CGICs because these hubs help us to do our work better. It's because the model is data-driven and it's also partnership-driven. Because when you put cops, detectives, deputies, agents, prosecutors, analysts from all different agencies, federal, state, local government, in the same location, reviewing evidence from the previous night's shootings and working together with real-time intelligence, it is a true game changer. This CGIC we're announcing here today is bringing dozens of agencies, federal, state, and local, together under one roof with a focus on real-time, comprehensive ballistics testing and firearms tracing. Why are they all joining? We are all joining together because the CGIC's approach has been proven repeatedly to work. You heard from the Attorney General about this. Crime gun intelligence, ATF-led investigations with the U.S. Attorney's Office. Last summer, we brought 59 charges using that method against people for firearms and narcotics crimes. Seized 250 crime guns. The investigation focused on firearms crime in Cleveland using this same kind of data from the NIBIN system and tracing to disrupt criminal activities. And it resulted in a lot of guns being seized that were NIBIN hits on multiple different crimes. I remember there was one firearm that we announced this together that had been linked to 14 different shootings here in Cleveland. The strategy works. In Cleveland, homicides with a firearm are now down more than 33% year to date. That's part of what our ability to, quote, follow the gun can help accomplish. And the data shows that our firearm trafficking investigations are increasingly intelligence-driven. Referrals from CGICs that resulted in referrals to prosecutor's office increased nearly 20% in just a 5-year period. This data underscores the value of CGICs and why today's announcement and the work being done here is so critical to protecting Americans from violent crime. That's why we're taking what we did last summer and making it permanent. This coordinated partnership, this CJIC, will allow us to continue to hold accountable the shooters who are terrorizing our communities with these tools. Because CJICs stop the next shooting. CJICs make homicide cases. CJICs focus our attention on a small number of individuals who are driving violent crime. And CJICs do even more. They also identify where the shooters are getting their guns. And there are many ways that firearms are trafficked from lawful commerce into the black market. And ATF is working tirelessly to stop that trafficking. Firearms trafficking is not a victimless crime. People who illegally arm violent people are also responsible for the predictable and destructive violence that follows. Common sense tells us that, but so does data. According to a recent report that we did, 60% of the recipients of trafficked firearms are convicted felons and other prohibited folks. And thousands of those trafficked firearms are directly linked to murders and shootings. And of course, that makes sense, right? If you can pass a background check, you don't have to get a firearm on the black market. It's also fitting that while we're making this announcement, we are celebrating the second anniversary of the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. That created 2 new crimes, as the Attorney General mentioned, that are focused on firearms trafficking: straw purchasing and a traffic statute. And I have to say, every time I hear the Attorney General talk about it, the successes are evident. The number is getting higher and growing. 525 defendants charged with just those 2 new laws. And while our efforts are paying off, we cannot become complacent. We have to work more. Of course, far too many lives are still being lost to gun violence every day. The number of children who are dying is shocking. Firearms violence is the #1 cause of death with children and youth in the United States. Not cancer, not cars, guns. It's unacceptable. Seeking justice for those victims and preventing more victims. That's what drives the brave men and women, the heroes that are standing on this stage every day. I want to close with this. The progress we have made means that the strategy is working, but it does not mean that our work is done, not by a long shot. It is not the time to let up. It's the time to double and triple down so that this decline continues. Yet, just when our violent crime reduction strategies have started to succeed, last year in 2024, Congress slashed ATF's budget by almost $50 million from the prior year and cut it $250 million from the president's request. Those kinds of cuts have hurt our efforts. ATF special agents, cut. I had to cancel 3 new special agent classes, which would have equated to about 10 to 12 fully staffed squads of agents and communities all across the United States that will lose eventually because of attrition. Crime gun tracing for local detectives working on homicide cases, cut. Nibin ballistics, the kind we're using here, cut. Touch DNA to find killers, cut. And for 2025, the president has again called on Congress to fully fund ATF. Yet, unfortunately, just this morning, the House of Representatives released a plan to impose even further, deeper, more damaging cuts on ATF. Cuts like that proposed this morning will not only mean an inability to open other centers, other CJICs like this, it will threaten closing facilities like this. It means leaving our communities less protected and thus less safe. And we cannot let that happen. These heroes today make that point better than I ever could. They remind us of what is possible when we come together to fight violent crime. It is a battle we can win. Thank you, and I'll now turn over the microphone to United States Attorney Lesko.
Good afternoon. I'm Becky Lutzko, the United States Attorney for, as Steve put it, the best U.S. Attorney's Office in the country, here in the Northern District of Ohio. I want to thank the Attorney General and Director Dettelbach for your support in establishing this CJIC here in our district and for joining us on this important event announcement here in our district. And I also want to extend a special thanks to our district's ATF Special Agent in Charge, Daryl McCormick, and Assistant Special Agent in Charge, John Smerglia, who, since we first discussed establishing this CJIC last summer, have worked tirelessly and devoted countless hours to breathing life into this CJIC. It is because of their efforts and their work and dedication to this project that we are here today. The CJIC's opening reflects federal, state, and local law enforcement partners coming together to support our collective mission to address gun violence and fight violent crime throughout Northeast Ohio. Investigative data shows that across the country, the same guns are often used to commit violent crimes on multiple different occasions. Here in Ohio, for example, we regularly see from ballistic comparison information that the same gun that was used in 2 or 3 shootings in Cleveland is also tied to a shooting in Lake or Summit or Lorain or Medina counties. Sometimes these violent crimes are committed and involved by the sector, and sometimes they involve the illegal sale from the same or of the same recycled gun. Either way, such crimes happen without regard to where one county line or one city limit ends and the next begins. That is why this official launch of our Northeast Ohio CJIC is such an important tool to reduce violent crime in our region and help keep our communities safe. Our CJIC highlights a strong attribute of federal law enforcement. Our federal law enforcement agencies serve as force multipliers for our state and local partners, bringing them together and investing in technology to help all levels of law enforcement carry out data-driven crime reduction strategies. The Northeast Ohio CJIC will generate investigative leads that identify 2 primary types of criminals: repeat trigger pullers and gun traffickers and straw purchasers who are arming them. This will help local police, county deputy sheriffs, and federal agents do 3 things: focus more precisely on individuals whose behavior is driving violent crime, take those persons off the street more quickly, and prevent future violent crime that innocent residents of our district's neighborhoods would otherwise experience. The CJIC relies on 2 distinct but interrelated parts that you've heard from both the Attorney General and from Director Dettelbach. First, the CJIC uses advanced technology that's combined with trained and experienced crime analysts to generate high-value targets and leads. Cutting-edge technologies link ballistics evidence found at crime scenes to shootings. Analysts use this and other information to draw connections between incidents, weapons used in crimes, other physical evidence, and people. They then vet that information and prioritize the most promising leads. Second, the CJIC establishes partnerships among law enforcement agencies at the federal, state, and local levels, among different counties and different cities. The partners to this CJIC have agreed to regularly provide ballistics information into a single common system for analysis and for use by all. But even more importantly, they have committed to sharing other information and to working as a team toward the common goal of solving and prosecuting violent crime throughout Northeast Ohio. By focusing on the most promising leads, they maximize the effective use of limited law enforcement resources. It is by combining these 2 parts, technology plus collaborative information sharing partnerships, that the CJIC gives investigators across our region easy and quick access to information, knowledge, and resource that individually they otherwise would not have. With the CJIC, investigators at all law enforcement levels will be better and more quickly able to connect the dots between crimes, identify potential subjects, and gather evidence. And that will help us more quickly bring to justice the dangerous criminals who commit violent crimes and those who arm them, so that neither continue to endanger innocent people in our neighborhoods. Some of these cases will be prosecuted locally. Some of them will merit federal prosecution. Our office and the agents and other investigators with whom we work will use the CJIC as a tool to further investigations that focus on illegal firearms trafficking of unlicensed and stolen firearms, whether that trafficking supports transnational drug cartels, local racketeering organizations, or a local drug trafficking ring, as well as focusing on repeat offenders who engage in violent crimes. We have recently seen how leveraging the same type of investigative tools and partnerships that the CJIC brings together leads law enforcement to federal prosecutions that have an impact on our community. As Director Dettelbach mentioned last summer, our office and the ATF led a summer-long that involved the use of undercover agents, and it targeted illegal gun sales here in our district, and in particular in several Cleveland neighborhoods that were experiencing high levels of violent crime. We worked with numerous federal, state, and local partners, many of the same partners who are here today, who have signed on to support the CJIC. And last September, we were able to charge 59 individuals, which we have increased now to over 60 individuals federally. And many of those were under the new laws enacted as part of the Federal Bipartisan Safer Communities Act of 2022. As a result of that investigation, as you heard and we talked about last fall, ATF seized over 250 firearms and removed those firearms from Cleveland streets. And technologies like NIBIN tied them to other crimes. Many of those were illegally sold, they were connected to other prior violent crimes, and they have provided leads now to solve those crimes. We have started to see those positive results here, and with that investigation and with other efforts to prosecute trigger pullers and illegal gun sellers in our community. Violent crime is notably down nationwide, and according to most recent statistics, it's down here in Cleveland too. The undercover operation demonstrates how prosecuting those who illegally sell guns and repeat shooters can help prevent future violent crime. We are excited for the additional reductions that we anticipate because the CJIC now formalizes our partnerships and amplifies the use of these powerful technologies. We also recognize in our office that we must address violent crime on multiple fronts. In fact, the department built that very concept into its 2021 Comprehensive Violent Crime Reduction Strategy. So I want to briefly mention that our office is working to supplement law enforcement successes and the future ones that we anticipate from the CJIC. We are developing a pilot project with the Ohio Adult Parole Authority and Partnership for a Safer Cleveland, along with local faith-based leaders and our other stance community partners. Together, we are focusing on community-based prevention and intervention programs for high-risk violent offenders, seeking to further reduce crime in Cleveland by fostering trust and legitimacy in the communities that we serve. In closing, I want to again emphasize the importance of partnerships in successfully enforcing our laws and in preventing violent crime from occurring. In fact, the sheer volume of the agencies who have agreed to participate in the CJIC, from Lake County, Medina County, Summit County, Lorain County, and Cuyahoga County, is a testament to why we must partner together to fight violent crime. Indeed, those partnerships are so important that our Akron Chief of Police, Brian Harding, took time to join us here despite a recent mass shooting in Akron that they are working very hard to resolve. They are so important that Euclid Chief of Police, Scott Meyer, took the time to join us here, even though he is still trying to help his officers cope with the recent tragic death of Officer Jacob Durbin. I thank these two cities, their police departments, and multiple federal agency partners, as well as our state and local partner agencies who are here today. I'm going to name them, and if I forget anyone, I apologize in advance. But specifically, I want to recognize the Barberton Police Department, BCI, the Cleveland Division of Police, and our Public Safety Officer, Drummond, from Cleveland, Cuyahoga County Executive Chris Ronayne, the Medina Police Department, the Cuyahoga, Lorain, and Medina County Sheriff's Departments, the Northeast Ohio Regional Fusion Center, the Ohio Investigative Unit, the Ohio Narcotics Information Center, and the Ohio State Patrol. We could not make any inroads into combating violent crime without your tireless efforts. The CJIC will amplify your work to address violent crime in our communities exponentially. Together, we are committed to protecting the communities in the Northern District of Ohio by using cutting-edge technologies and leveraging our partnerships. We want the families of our region to know that they should be able to live in peace. We want to see kids play outside without fear and people to feel safe to walk in their neighborhoods. These are the things that matter to us, and they drive what we do every day. Thank you.
Talk about the decisions that go into choosing where to put these centers. Why Cleveland? Why Northeast Ohio?
Well, we're trying to spread them all over the country. Partly depends on willingness of partners. And there's an incredible amount of willingness, as you can see here, among all these partner agencies. But I'm going to let Director Dettelbach speak more specifically to this.
So obviously, we would like to do this in many, many, many places. We look at things like, as the Attorney General said, the level of ability to partner with the local community here. That is an off the board score. That's been the case for many years. And we look at where the crime is also, right? And so in communities like Cleveland, all over the country, we experienced that spike in violent crime several years ago. That happened here. It hurt people here. I remember reading and seeing in the media the reports that you guys ran on those numbers as well. So we look at that as well. And then, of course, we have to make $1 out of 50 cents. So we always want to go to more places, and I'm just hoping in the future that we will have the ability to come to places like Cleveland and to maintain this effort, given what we're facing.
Yeah, Leslie from 21 News. For police departments that are maybe roughly an hour away, would they be able to utilize this center and kind of send their evidence up here?
Yes, the short answer is yes, but again, I'll let the Director say more.
Well, sure. So this is a great example of a regional model. I think the U.S. Attorney made that point really well. But we do this in a lot of places, and there's different models. And for instance, we opened one in Fargo, North Dakota. So think about that. If you think an hour is a long way, try going to North Dakota, right? So different places need different regional touches, and obviously the people here in this room know that better than I do, how to work with each other, how to get evidence from point A to point B, and that's what this center's about.
Sarah, yeah, thank you. Attorney General, how soon do you expect to see results, and does it feel like you're just chipping away at the problem when shootings continue every day?
I think we'll see results when we see the next set of violent crime statistics. The FBI produces them virtually every quarter. Many local press and newspaper collect that information and also produces it. Look, I worried at the beginning that this would be a very bad situation. That is when I first came in. But I remembered I was an assistant U.S. attorney in Washington, D.C. when the murder rate was extraordinarily high. And through these kinds of programs, but with less technology, we were able to drive the numbers very far down, such that, before the pandemic, the numbers were very low. We are beginning to see that again here, as I said. This is not just a chipping away. To get the largest reduction in homicides in 30 years, that's an enormous decrease. So I'm hopeful. We are not going to rest until we are able to ensure that everyone is safe from gun violence.
Cassidy Wilson with Spectrum News 1. How do you feel about the designation of gun violence as a public health threat, and how will centers like this one help with the gun violence problem?
So on the first question, this was a determination by the Surgeon General. I think it's helpful for drawing public attention to the question. I'm going to let Steve answer your second question.
It's sort of what we talked about the entire time, so I don't want to repeat, but by basically leveraging the two key ingredients here that will drive down violent crime are, number one, the partnerships, so the collaboration, and number two, the intelligence. And when I'm talking about intelligence, I'm talking about the ability to take a particular piece of evidence, a shell casing, a fingerprint, a LPR reading, a traffic light camera, a ring camera, and to take that piece of evidence and turn it to actionable intelligence in real time, so that every morning, with whatever shootings happen the next day, these folks are sitting there together in the room with what they have, and they're able to prioritize the leads to work on the most important ones for the most violent people first.